Welcome, educators, parents, and scholar gamers, to the Academy of Esports, Episode 17, When School Culture and Gaming Culture Collide. I'm your host, James O'Hagan. This is the podcast where I delve into topics surrounding esports and education. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We cannot forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. In this episode, it's a bit of a difficult episode for me. The difficulty of this episode comes because of some things that have come to light recently in gaming culture, and it is one of those things that you look at it and you wonder how, as an educator and how, as a parent of children, do you philosophically start to identify with the problem and try to find balance between the problem and the benefits, I guess you could say. So to kind of explain what I'm getting at here, it's important, I feel, to go back just a little bit and talk about why I started doing this, why video games. In the last couple of days, I've been asked about this. And I get asked about this a lot, about why would we do video games in schools? And so I always talk about the mission. When I talk about the Academy of Esports, I talk about the mission, the 5 things. And then I also talk about the scholar gamer concept. But when I got started with this several years ago, when I was in the Rockford Public Schools, when I really started thinking about this and diving into this and trying to figure out, would this be good for schools to do? The one game that we focused on was League of Legends. And the main focus of doing all of this was always in the collegiate scholarship. There was some thought given to the career pathway, but for the most part, we focused really on the college scholarship opportunity. And we know that there were a few at the time. Robert Morris was the first college that I'm aware of, and I think most people accept as being the first, who offered a scholarship of one kind to college in order to play video games. Closely following, not far behind them, was the University of California at Irvine, and now we have several colleges offering this. And the premier game of choice in this whole thing, going back to this, I guess from the collegiate esports pathway and the high school one, the main focused game has always been League of Legends. The one that Riot Games produces. Now, my philosophical dilemma, I guess you could say, comes from the fact that in the last few weeks, it has been revealed that Riot Games, as a company, has a tremendous problem within their ranks. There have been some, and I will link to all of these blog posts that I have, of people who have left the company because of homophobic or misogynistic behaviors. And I'm not saying that all people who work at Riot subscribe to this culture, but it is the widely reported culture of the company, and it has been actually acknowledged by the company on their own website. I want to read a little bit of this to you, and again, I will link to this in the show notes. And they say this: "For the past 3 weeks, we've been focused on listening and learning. As a company, we're used to patching problems ASAP, but this patch will not happen overnight. We will weave this change into our cultural DNA and leave no room for sexism or misogyny. Inclusivity, diversity, respect, and equality are all non-negotiable. While there is much to improve, there is a tremendous amount of good at Riot that will drive this change. This is our top priority until we get it right." And they go through to list how they intend to fix the culture. And I guess I could go into the culture in detail through what was written in the various stories and in the various blog posts, but I don't feel that it is as necessary to make the argument here about my philosophical dilemma. Okay, so The steps that Riot is looking to change this culture that they have, this widely reported culture of sexism and misogyny in their company, is they're looking to, first step, expanding the cultural diversity and inclusion initiative. So they're looking to focus on player empathy. They want to accelerate their existing cultural and inclusion work. Second step they want to do is revisit cultural definitions. They want to reevaluate the language of Riot, words like gamer and meritocracy, to ensure they mean the same thing to all of us. They want to go through a third-party evaluation. They've engaged 2 leading consultants on culture change to provide us with their expertise and recommendations as we rebuild Riot's culture. They do say that their goal isn't to be just good, it's to become a leader on diversity, inclusion, and culture. Fourth is the investigating process. Fifth, they want to reevaluate their recruiting. Sixth, trainings. They want to, as they say, double down on trainings. And staffing up for D&I, so for diversity and inclusion. They want a new chief human resource officer, chief diversity officer, somebody who works alongside the CEO, the president, and the COO on the executive team. Now, looking at all of that and putting all of that together, it sounds wonderful. And I do, and as this is I guess I would, if I look at to those, they have a section in this document about who they have let down. And I feel like I fall under the realm of current and prospective partners. I don't follow so much. I'm not a rioter. I'm not a contractor. I guess I'm a fan. I'm not a player. I'm not much of a player. I'm not a very good player. We know that. Considering a career at Riot, would I consider a career at Riot? I would hesitate right now to career at Riot, though I don't know if they would have me given my roles that I've had previously. But I do most identify with this right here, to current and prospective partners. And it says this. I want to read this part. We know you have questions about Riot's culture and our future. We ask for some patience as we focus internally on taking the steps to heal and improve. We're committed to you, as we are to rioters, that we're going to set the bar high on culture and that we'll update you as we make progress. So if you're a coach of an esports team, or you are work within a conference, an esports conference for high school students or collegiate students, this should be speaking to you. That's that statement. I look at this whole document and I felt it was written by a public relations firm. There's something about esports culture, gaming culture, and this came up a few times when I was on a panel earlier this week at the Radio Milwaukee studios about esports in Southeast Wisconsin, and somebody at the panel made mention about how gaming culture sniffs out things that don't feel genuine, like they don't feel grassroots. This document, as I read it right now on my iPad here, it doesn't feel genuine and it doesn't feel grassroots. It feels to me like it was put together by a PR firm, and it probably was. I doubt that this was written by the CEO of the company. As I look it over, they're in damage control right now. If you go and look at the blog posts that I have and read through them about the prevailing culture in the company, you would see a company that is run male-dominated and is very non-professional, I guess you could say. And they're about not wanting to lose an edge, and I don't know what that edge is. Most of us can only name one game that they have that has been very successful, and that's League of Legends. And so when I look at what Riot is, and I look at the company, I take a step back for a moment. I'm an educator first. I have a boss who's the chief academic officer for my school district. I have a superintendent who I would also have to answer questions to. And I have a school board, and I have a community of people in the city of Racine who I would have to answer questions to. Let's take the name Riot out of this. And let's turn this into a discussion about a company that comes to us and wants to do business with the school district. Okay, so I'm approached by a company. They have a product that I really enjoy, that I really like, that there are competitors out there. They do have like products, but I really like this product in particular. This product is used by most schools across the United States. A lot of teachers are aware of it. A lot of teachers use it. Students are most comfortable using it. Students prefer to use it. But then when I go to do an evaluation on the company and stories start to crop up about sexism and about misogyny, I have to take a step back as an educator, because I work in an environment where we take everybody, that we do have to be inclusive, that we do celebrate diversity, especially in the Racine Unified School District. And when I take that step back, I have to imagine that at some point I could get asked by a school board member or a community member, hey, I see you went with the product from this company. Knowing what you know about that company's current culture, why would you go with that, given that our school values and our school mission and vision and goals are this? And yes, their product that they put out, it's a product, doesn't match their company, their philosophy, their company, the way their company acts in public is not matching up with what our values, mission, vision, values, and goals are. This is very similar in this instance with Riot. I have for the last several years championed the use of League of Legends as the primary game to help students achieve that collegiate scholarship pathway, that career pathway, as a vehicle, using the game as a vehicle to get us from point A to point B. Now, I will say this. I've also said through a lot of this that the game should never be the focus of esports. The game is our vehicle to get us to something more, to get us to that next level. That's where the game exists, okay? When I was involved mostly with doing IT work for school districts, I was the tech director for several school districts. I used to always look at things from a device agnostic perspective, meaning I didn't care if the device was a Chromebook or if it was a Windows machine or if it was an iPad or a Mac or whatever. I always made sure that we could use whatever device we needed in order to achieve our educational goals, because our educational goals should not be driven by the technology. Our educational goals should drive the technology that we choose. So let's look at now the perspective of this problem, philosophical problem that we have. If I'm focused on the game League of Legends solely by itself and married into the League of Legends ecosystem for our esports teams at the high school, I am now then stuck, I guess you could say, with League of Legends. And I'm stuck at the mercy of Riot to get their house in order, which they do not have currently. And again, they've acknowledged it, and the blog posts that are out there, I highly recommend that you read them, because it's important to understand the climate and the culture of Riot at this current point and the product that you're asking our students to use. And if your school can look at the mission, vision, values, and goals of your school and decide if this is appropriate for your student body. I know at the collegiate level, there are a lot of Christian universities, Christian colleges that are using League of Legends for their tournaments, and I would be curious to see what their thoughts are about the company of Riot and its culture of sexism and misogyny. I know there's a lot of private schools also doing the same thing, and of course the public schools doing it as well. And I really am struggling with whether we continue to employ League of Legends as a game for our high school esports program, because there are alternatives. The main alternative to League of Legends, the game in the esports world, is a game called Dota 2, D-O-T-A. Defense of the Ancients is what it stands for. And it's a free game also to download. It's owned by a company named Valve. So again, very similar game, big prize pools. I feel that the game translates. If you can play Dota 2, there are translations that could be made over to League of Legends. It's a very the games are very similar in a lot of ways. If you want to call it Coke versus Pepsi, it's probably the best way for a lot of people to understand it. It's like competing soft drinks. It's like McDonald's, Burger King. It is Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. Okay. So as an educator, knowing that I have to answer to a school board and to a community that does not necessarily understand and embrace esports culture, I have to be very careful about how these companies are perceived. Because a school district, if I came to you and if I came to my school board and said, we want to do business with Riot Games, and the school board member said, well, don't they have a problem with sexism and misogyny? It would be a very hard sell, almost an impossible sell to the school board to work with that company. When we do, when we go into business, when we sign contracts with companies, there's usually a background check that is made of the company and the people we're doing business with. Would these people, given the state of things, they would probably pass the background check, because I'm unaware of any criminal complaints that have been made. But again, I come back to the philosophical debates around this. Now, with all of that said, there's the other side of the coin to this. And I was talking to a friend today about this, and she reminded me that the other side of this that we have to consider are the students, are the children. And I don't mean that as we have to protect the children. We always have to protect the children. But she reminded me that there are a lot of students who identify with this game at a very much a core level. This is something that they love, they're passionate about, and it would be putting up a barrier for them to, on the one hand, say we want to do esports, and on the other hand, we don't want to use League of Legends, we want to use Dota 2. I understand that. But I get students a lot of the times who always ask about alternative games, and we only can support so many games. So that's why, again, when we do esports at the high school level, we have to think broadly. We cannot focus in on the games. The games have to be something that is the vehicle to that something more. So we still want to have those roles for students to be able to be shoutcasters. We still want those students to have roles like following the scholar gamer concept. The athletes, the shoutcasters, the social media managers, the team managers, the tournament organizers, all those roles are things that we need to allow our students to have and be. And by not focusing on the game, we are allowed to do that. We are also then, by not focusing on the game, allowed to interchange these games as needed in a lot of cases. Now, again, we're joining a conference. We're in the process right now in the state of Wisconsin of formally organizing the Wisconsin High School Esports Association. We've had several meetings. It's been fantastic. And we've, up to this point, talked about League of Legends as being one of our core games that would be used in conference play. And so, looking at what Riot is looking to do now and how they're looking to gain control, I guess, of their culture, I am skeptically enthused, I guess you could say, that they are going to fix this. I feel that they should be allowed an opportunity to work from within to fix their company culture. I also feel that there are probably people who are possibly looking at being fired, very public firings, I'm sure will probably be coming as a result of this. But it is imperative for Riot to address their company culture, because as somebody who goes around the country and talks to people about the wonders and the joy of playing video games and seeing kids play games and engage in their school and gain all the benefits from a quality run esports program, I don't want to have to use Riot as an example of being the ones we would love to use, but we can't because their own shortcomings, while their game is great, while their product is used by a lot of people, I don't want it to become the thing that ultimately makes us shy away from them. They become the black sheep of the high school esports world. And I don't feel it will negatively impact our students if we did go away from League of Legends. Like I said, there's Dota 2, which is a perfectly equal game. Not as widely adopted at the collegiate level. But I feel that Riot is going to, if they do not fix this problem soon, force the hand of many schools to make that change much sooner than I think that they realize. So that will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN. And through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com and also through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAO Esports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.